You need to hear this before your next meal, because what you're about to learn could quietly be affecting your heart, your joints, your brain, right now, without you even realizing it. After the age of 50, your body changes in ways most people never fully understand. Your metabolism slows, your immune system becomes more sensitive, and most dangerously of all, inflammation becomes easier to trigger and harder to shut off. Now here's the frightening part. This isn't the kind of inflammation you feel. It's not always pain. It's not always swelling. This is hidden inflammation, silent, chronic, and deeply destructive. It's been linked to heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, arthritis, and even certain cancers. And according to multiple large-scale studies, more than 60% of adults over 50 have elevated inflammatory markers without knowing it. As a medical professional would warn you, this isn't about one bad habit. It's about everyday foods that seem harmless, but are quietly damaging your body from the inside out. In this video, we're counting down the top foods that trigger hidden inflammation after 50. And by the end, you'll know exactly what to avoid and what to do instead, starting today. But pay close attention, because the most dangerous foods are not what most people expect. And the number one item? It's something millions of people over 50 eat every single day, believing it's completely safe. Before we begin, I want to ask you something simple. How old are you right now? Drop your age in the comments below. There's something powerful about seeing where you stand, and you might be surprised how many others are going through the exact same changes as you. Now let's begin the countdown. Starting with number 6. You might think this one is harmless, even healthy, but for many people over 50, it's quietly fueling inflammation every single day. I'm talking about refined vegetable oils. Yes, the same oils found in salad dressings, fried foods, packaged snacks, and even heart-healthy products. Here's the problem. Most of these oils, like soybean oil, corn oil, and sunflower oil, are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. Now, your body does need some omega-6, but when the balance tips too far, as it often does after 50, it creates a biochemical environment that promotes inflammation. Research shows that the modern diet contains up to 20 times more omega-6 than omega-3, and that imbalance triggers inflammatory pathways linked to cardiovascular disease and joint degeneration. In fact, one study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that individuals with higher omega-6 intake had significantly elevated inflammatory markers compared to those with balanced fat intake. Now let me tell you about someone this affected. A man named Khalid, 62 years old. He thought he was doing everything right. Switched from butter to vegetable oil. Ate more salads. Avoided red meat. But over time, his knees started aching. His energy dropped, and his blood tests showed rising inflammation levels. What he didn't realize was that the healthy oil he was using daily was quietly contributing to the problem. After switching to anti-inflammatory fats, like olive oil and omega-3 rich foods, his symptoms began to improve within months. Here's why this matters more after 50. As you age, your body becomes less efficient at regulating inflammation. That means what once had little effect can now trigger a much stronger response. And when this happens day after day, meal after meal, it builds into something dangerous. So what can you do starting today? First, reduce your intake of processed foods. These oils are hidden everywhere. Second, replace refined vegetable oils with healthier options like extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil. And here's a powerful synergy tip most people overlook. Increase your intake of omega-3s, like fatty fish, walnuts, or flax seeds, while reducing omega-6. This balance is what truly protects your body. Even small changes here can have a profound impact. Now let's move to number 5. This one is even more deceptive because it's often marketed as a quick energy boost, and many people over 50 rely on it daily. I'm talking about refined sugar. Not just the obvious kind, but the hidden sugars in tea, biscuits, cereals, and packaged foods. Here's what happens when you consume sugar after 50. Your body processes it less efficiently. Insulin sensitivity decreases with age. That means sugar stays in your bloodstream longer, triggering a cascade of inflammatory responses. This leads to the production of advanced glycation end products, AGEs, which damage cells, accelerate aging, and promote chronic inflammation. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that high sugar intake increased inflammatory markers like CRP by up to 30% in older adults. But the real danger isn't just numbers, it's what happens in real life. Take Shazia, 58 years old. She had a habit of drinking sweet tea multiple times a day. It was comforting, familiar, something she never questioned. But over time, she began experiencing fatigue, brain fog, and weight gain, especially around her abdomen. Her doctor eventually diagnosed her with prediabetes and elevated inflammation levels. When she reduced her sugar intake, even without drastic dieting, her energy improved, her focus sharpened, and her inflammation markers dropped significantly within weeks. Here's why this hits harder after 50. Your body's ability to handle sugar declines. What once felt like a harmless treat now becomes a metabolic stressor, and chronic exposure, it accelerates aging from the inside out. So what can you do? Start by cutting back on obvious sugars, but don't stop there. Check labels. Sugar hides under names like glucose, fructose, sucrose, and corn syrup. Replace sugary drinks with water, herbal tea, or unsweetened options. And here's a synergy tip that makes a real difference. Pair carbohydrates with fiber, protein, or healthy fats. This slows sugar absorption and reduces the inflammatory spike. Something as simple as adding nuts to your snack or switching to whole fruit instead of juice can protect your body in ways you can't see, but will absolutely feel. And remember, this is only the beginning, because the next items on this list become progressively more dangerous and more common in everyday diets. We've covered number 6 and number 5, but what's coming next catches even health-conscious people off guard, and it may already be in your kitchen. Now let's move to number 4. This one is especially dangerous because it hides behind convenience and routine. It's something many people over 50 rely on almost every day without thinking twice. Processed meats. We're talking about sausages, deli slices, packaged kebabs, nuggets, and even some ready-to-eat chicken products. At first glance, they seem like a practical choice, quick, affordable, and protein-rich. But inside your body, they tell a very different story. Processed meats contain preservatives like nitrates and nitrites, which can form harmful compounds called nitrosamines when heated or digested. These compounds are strongly linked to inflammation and cellular damage. On top of that, these foods are often high in sodium and saturated fats, both of which contribute to chronic inflammation, especially in aging bodies. A large-scale study published in the BMJ found that people who consumed processed meats regularly had a 42% higher risk of heart disease and significantly elevated inflammatory markers. But statistics only tell part of the story. Let me tell you about Rashid, 65. After retiring, his lifestyle became more sedentary. Breakfast was often processed sausages. Lunch, a quick sandwich with deli meat. It felt harmless, easy, but over time, he began experiencing stiffness in his joints, rising blood pressure, and persistent fatigue. His doctor eventually pointed to chronic inflammation as a key factor, and processed meats were a major contributor. Once Rashid began replacing these foods with fresh, unprocessed protein, like grilled fish, lentils, and eggs, his symptoms didn't just stabilize, they improved. Here's why this becomes more dangerous after 50. Your body's detoxification systems slow down. That means harmful compounds linger longer and do more damage. Inflammation builds quietly, gradually, until one day it shows up as disease. So what can you do? Start by limiting processed meats to occasional use, not daily staples. Choose fresh, whole protein sources whenever possible. And here's a powerful synergy tip. Pair your protein with antioxidant-rich foods like leafy greens, tomatoes, or turmeric. These help neutralize inflammatory compounds and protect your cells. It's not just about removing the bad, it's about strengthening your body's defense. Now let's move to number 3. This one is deeply ingrained in daily habits and often completely overlooked. Refined carbohydrates, white bread, white rice, bakery items, packaged snacks. They're soft, comforting, and familiar. But after 50, your body reacts to them very differently. Refined carbs are stripped of fiber and nutrients. That means they digest rapidly, causing sharp spikes in blood sugar. And every spike triggers inflammation. Over time, this creates a cycle: sugar spike, insulin surge, inflammation, energy crash, and repeat. A study in the journal Nutrients found that high intake of refined carbohydrates was associated with increased levels of inflammatory markers, particularly in adults over 50. But here's what that looks like in real life. Nazreen, 61, had a routine she never questioned. White toast in the morning, biscuits with tea, rice with most meals. She didn't consider it unhealthy. It was what she had eaten her entire life. But she began experiencing joint pain, especially in her hands. Simple tasks became uncomfortable. Her blood work showed elevated inflammation. When she switched to whole grains, like brown rice, whole wheat, and oats, and increased her fiber intake, something changed. Her energy stabilized, her pain reduced, and her body felt calmer. Here's why refined carbs are more harmful after 50. Your insulin sensitivity declines. Your body struggles to manage glucose efficiently, so each spike hits harder, lasts longer, causes more damage. And over time, this contributes not just to inflammation, but to conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. So what can you do starting now? Replace refined grains with whole, fiber-rich alternatives. Slow down your meals. Avoid eating carbs alone. Combine them with protein or fat. And here's a synergy tip that can transform your results. Add fermented foods, like yogurt or kefir, to your diet. These support gut health, which plays a critical role in regulating inflammation. Because here's something many people don't realize. Your gut and your inflammation levels are deeply connected. Fix one, and you influence the other. Now, before we move to the next item, which becomes even more serious, I want to pause for a moment. If you've made it this far, it means you care about your health. And more importantly, you're willing to question habits that most people ignore. So here's what I want you to do. Take a second and look at your daily meals. Which of these foods are showing up regularly? Because awareness is the first step, but action is what changes everything. If you're finding this helpful, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Not for entertainment, but for information that could genuinely protect your health in the years ahead. And if even one of these insights has made you think differently about your choices, share this video with someone close to you. Because the truth is, most people don't realize the damage until it's too late. Now let's continue. Number 2. This one is where things start to get more serious. Because it doesn't just trigger inflammation. It disrupts your entire internal system. I'm talking about artificial trans fats. Even though many countries have restricted them, they still appear in small amounts in packaged foods, baked goods, margarine, and fried items. And for someone over 50, even small amounts can have a significant impact. Trans fats are known to increase bad cholesterol, LDL, decrease good cholesterol, HDL, and trigger systemic inflammation. But it goes deeper than that. They interfere with cell membranes, making it harder for your cells to function properly. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that trans fat consumption was directly associated with increased levels of inflammatory markers and a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. But here's what makes this especially dangerous. You often don't see it clearly labeled. It hides under terms like partially hydrogenated oils. And that's where people get caught off guard. Let me tell you about Imran, 67. He loved bakery snacks, biscuits, pastries, small treats throughout the day. He didn't overeat. He stayed active. But during a routine checkup, his doctor found something alarming. High inflammation levels, borderline cholesterol, and early signs of arterial stiffness. The culprit? Years of low-level exposure to trans fats. Once he eliminated these foods and switched to whole, natural alternatives, his markers improved. But it took time. Because damage like this doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't reverse overnight either. Here's why trans fats are especially harmful after 50. Your cardiovascular system becomes more vulnerable. Your arteries lose flexibility. Inflammation accelerates plaque buildup, raising the risk of heart attack and stroke. So what can you do? Avoid products with partially hydrogenated oils completely. Limit packaged and fried foods. Cook more at home using natural fats. And here's a synergy tip that can amplify your protection. Increase your intake of anti-inflammatory foods like garlic, ginger, and omega-3 rich fish. These help counteract the damage and support vascular health. Because at this stage of life, small exposures can have big consequences. And what's coming next is the most dangerous of all. The one food that silently fuels inflammation more than anything else after 50. And chances are, you're consuming it regularly. Now we come to number one. This is the one that shocks people the most because it doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't taste harmful. And in many homes, it's consumed every single day without a second thought. I'm talking about ultra-processed foods. Not just one item, but an entire category that has quietly taken over modern diets. Packaged snacks, instant noodles, frozen meals, flavored yogurts, chips, sweetened breakfast cereals, even many so-called low-fat or diet products. They're engineered for convenience, designed for taste, built to be addictive, but inside your body, they trigger a chain reaction that becomes especially dangerous after 50. Here's what makes ultra-processed foods so harmful. They're loaded with a combination of refined sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial additives, emulsifiers, and preservatives. Individually, each of these can stress your system. Together, they overwhelm it. They disrupt your gut microbiome, the ecosystem of bacteria that regulates inflammation, immunity, and even brain health. They spike blood sugar. They alter hormone signaling. And they keep your body in a constant, low-grade inflammatory state. A large study published in the BMJ found that higher consumption of ultra-processed foods was associated with a 62% increase in all-cause mortality. Another analysis linked them to higher levels of inflammatory markers and increased risk of heart disease and cognitive decline. But numbers don't fully capture what this looks like in real life. Let me tell you about Farzana, 63. She lived alone after her children moved away. Cooking felt like too much effort most days, so she relied on convenience. Instant meals, packaged snacks, ready-to-eat foods. At first, it seemed manageable. She wasn't overeating. Her weight stayed relatively stable, but slowly, things began to change. She felt tired more often. Her sleep became irregular. She noticed stiffness in her joints when she woke up. Then came the brain fog, forgetting small things, losing track of conversations. Her doctor ran tests. The results showed elevated inflammation, early signs of metabolic dysfunction, and concerning markers related to cognitive decline. What shocked her most was this. She didn't feel sick, but her body was under constant internal stress. When she finally made a shift, reducing ultra-processed foods and returning to simple, whole meals, something remarkable happened. It wasn't overnight, but within weeks, her energy began to return. Her mind felt clearer. Her body felt lighter, not just physically, but internally. Within months, her inflammatory markers dropped significantly, and for the first time in years, she felt in control of her health again. Here's why this matters so much after 50. Your body loses resilience. It becomes less forgiving. The systems that once compensated, your metabolism, your gut, your immune response, don't recover as quickly. So when you expose your body to constant chemical and metabolic stress, it doesn't bounce back. It accumulates damage. And that damage shows up as inflammation. Silent, persistent, dangerous. This is what leads to chronic disease, not in a single moment, but over years of small, repeated choices. So what can you do? You don't need extreme diets. You don't need to eliminate everything overnight, but you do need to become intentional. Start by recognizing ultra-processed foods for what they are. If it comes in a package with a long ingredient list you can't recognize, that's your first warning. Shift toward whole, minimally processed foods. Simple meals, fresh ingredients, real cooking. Even small changes, one meal at a time, begin to reduce the inflammatory load on your body. And here's the most powerful synergy tip of all. Support your gut. Because your gut is where inflammation often begins. Add fiber-rich foods like vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. Include fermented foods like yogurt or kefir. Stay hydrated. When your gut is balanced, your entire system stabilizes. Inflammation decreases. Immunity improves. Even your mood and mental clarity benefit. This isn't just about avoiding disease. It's about reclaiming how you feel every day. Because the truth is, most people don't realize how bad they've been feeling until they start feeling better. And that's what makes this so powerful. You have more control than you think. Right now, today, before your next meal, you can begin reducing the hidden inflammation that's been quietly affecting your body. You can protect your heart, your brain, your joints, your future, but only if you act. Because the damage we've talked about today, it doesn't wait. It builds, silently, patiently, until one day, it becomes impossible to ignore. So don't wait for that moment. Don't wait for a diagnosis. Don't wait for a warning sign. Start now. Look at what's on your plate tonight. Make one better choice, then another tomorrow. This is how change happens. Not all at once, but consistently. And over time, those choices become your protection, your strength, your second chance. You've made it this far in life. You've experienced more than most. And your body, despite everything, has carried you here. Now it's your turn to take care of it. Not with extremes, but with awareness, with intention, with respect for what your body needs at this stage of life. Because aging is not the problem. Uncontrolled inflammation is. And now, you know exactly where it comes from. If this video opened your eyes, even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you care about, because this information could help them avoid years of silent damage. And if you want more content like this, practical, research-backed, and focused on helping you stay strong, clear, and independent after 50, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your future health is not just determined by genetics. It's shaped by what you do next. And the next decision is yours.